In the small town of Irvine, Scotland, the night of February 6, 2003 was cold and still. Inside a home on Patterson Avenue, a family slept, or so it seemed. The front door was unlocked, and a visitor driven by a dark purpose stepped inside. He moved silently through the house. He climbed the stairs. He entered a bedroom where a 15-year-old boy was fast asleep. The boy had no idea danger was standing over his bed. The man was there to settle a score, but he was in the wrong room. Who was this man, and who was he really looking for? How could a quiet suburban home become the scene of such a terrible event? Tonight's story follows a deadly quest for vengeance that begins in the violent underworld of Glasgow and ends in a quiet family home in Ayrshire. Stay with us as we expose the heartbreaking truth.
William Ferris, known to all as Billy, was born in Glasgow in 1950, into a world where the lines between right and wrong were blurred from the start. His father, William Ferris Sr., was a career criminal, a man who made his living as an armed robber. For a young boy like Billy, his father's path was not a cautionary tale, but a blueprint. He was the firstborn son, 13 years older than his now famous brother Paul. While Paul's life would become deeply entangled with Glasgow's criminal underworld, Billy's was forged in a different kind of fire. He was, by all accounts, a loose cannon, an opportunistic and sadistic bully from a young age. He possessed a volatile temper that could ignite at the slightest provocation. If anyone challenged him, or even misspoke in his presence, he would fly off the handle, and he was careful to pick victims who were unlikely to fight back effectively. His reputation for violence grew with him. He followed his father into the family business of crime, participating in the robbery of a local post office. In a move that became local legend, they stole the wage packets intended for the prison guards at Barley Prison. The irony was not lost on anyone when William Sr. was caught for his role in the heist and sentenced to 4 years in that very same prison. Years later, guards would jokingly mention the incident to Billy's brother Paul when he, too, was an inmate there. While his father was incarcerated, Billy's behavior escalated. He was causing so much trouble for his mother, with the police constantly knocking on their door, that she had to make a difficult decision. She sent him away to live with family down in England, hoping to keep him out of sight and out of trouble. The final straw had been an incident where a man was stabbed and slashed outside a city pub, and the police were keen to question Billy about it. The move south, however, did not reform him. It only gave him a new territory. In the town of Corby, he connected with local criminals who shared his interest in armed robbery. His criminal career continued, but he never forgot his roots. He would return to Glasgow periodically, and during one of these visits, he became the primary suspect in a police investigation into a plot to rob a Royal Mail train leaving from Glasgow Central Station. Billy was said to be obsessed with the legendary Great Train Robbery of 1963, carried out by figures like Bruce Reynolds and Ronnie Biggs. He fancied himself capable of pulling off a similar score. Police questioned him intensely, but they could never prove his involvement. His life took a fateful turn in 1977. He was charged with an armed robbery in Northamptonshire and was being held on remand while awaiting trial. During this time, he learned that his wife was having an affair with a man he considered a friend, a criminal associate named Alan Thompson. When Billy was released from prison, revenge was the only thing on his mind. He had been out for just 1 week when he tracked his target down. He went to a local pub where he knew Alan Thompson would be. Thompson was a big man with a reputation as a formidable fighter, so Billy armed himself with a knife. Inside the crowded pub, the two men confronted each other. The argument quickly turned into a fistfight. Before anyone could intervene and break it up, Billy Ferris unleashed his fury. In a jealous rage, he stabbed the 22-year-old Alan Thompson 7 times, killing him in front of a room full of witnesses. For this crime, Billy was convicted of murder in Northampton Crown Court and sentenced to life in prison. He would spend the next 2 decades behind bars. After serving nearly 11 years in English prisons, he was transferred back up to Scotland, to Her Majesty's Prison Perth, to be closer to his family as his father's health was failing. During a supervised home visit to his family's house on Hogganfield Street, he managed to give his 2 guards the slip. He asked to use the bathroom, climbed out the window, and went on the run. For nearly 3 months, he evaded capture, making his way down to Blackpool. Authorities eventually caught up with him and sent him back to Scotland to serve the remainder of his time. His escape attempt had occurred just 12 months before he would have been eligible for release. and the stunt cost him another 7 years of his freedom. He was sent to the Special Segregation Unit at Barley, a place reserved for the most difficult inmates. Finally, in 1999, after more than 20 years in prison for his first murder, Billy Ferris was a free man. He decided to leave Glasgow behind, hoping for a fresh start. He moved to the coastal town of Irvine in Ayrshire, a place where he believed he could build a new life away from his past. He met a new woman, Carol Ann, who would become his second wife. He started working for his brother, Paul, who was running a security company called Frontline Security. Billy served as an enforcer, a role that suited his intimidating nature. Paul's company was in the middle of a turf war with a rival firm, Province Security, run by a man named John Morrison. The two mobs clashed several times as they competed for lucrative security contracts. But Billy was not content with just being an enforcer. He was also trying to muscle his way into the local drug trade in Ayrshire, which led to disputes with local families. However, it was a conflict of a more personal nature that would set the stage for his second act of murder. It began at a house party. A group of local girls were celebrating a birthday on the street when Carol Ann Ferris arrived. Standing outside was a young man named David Hutchison. He was 18 years old, drunk, and angry about being refused entry to the party. He started an argument with Carol Ann, which escalated until he struck her in the face. The blow was so severe that it fractured her eye socket, leaving her with a massive black eye. When Billy got the phone call, he rushed to the party, enraged. He was looking for David Hutchison, but David was already gone. Billy began threatening some of the girls at the party, demanding to know where David lived. When they refused to tell him, he made a terrifying threat, telling them he would inject them with AIDS. His search for revenge had begun, and he would not be deterred. He eventually found out David's address. David Hutchison's mother was so terrified of what Billy Ferris might do that she sent her son on a prolonged holiday to Spain, praying that the time and distance would be enough to let the situation blow over. But Billy Ferris was not the type of man to let things go. Months passed, and David Hutchison eventually returned to Irvine from Spain. The simmering threat had not disappeared. One evening, David bumped into Carol Ann at a local nightclub. She confronted him, her words a chilling reminder of the danger he was in. "This still isn't over for what you done to me," she warned him, and also threatened him by invoking the name of Paul Ferris. The final, tragic chapter of this quest for revenge unfolded on the night of Wednesday, February 5th, 2003. Billy Ferris was in Glasgow, drinking with an associate named Lance McManus. As they prepared to head home, Billy told his friend that they would be making a stop. "We are going to be paying a visit to David Hutchison," he said. The two men drove to Irvine and made their way to Patterson Avenue, the quiet residential street where the Hutchison family lived. They found the front door of the house unlocked and let themselves in. David Hutchison was out with friends that night, and his mother was at work. Inside the house, Billy instructed McManus to wait downstairs and steal some electrical items to make the scene look like a robbery gone wrong. Billy then went up the stairs, his mind fixed on a single purpose. He entered the bedroom where he believed he would find David Hutchison sleeping. The room was dark, the light was off. He could see a figure in the bed. In the dim light, the sleeping person looked like his target. Billy allegedly whispered, "It's payback time now." But it was not David in the bed. It was his innocent younger brother, Jason Hutchison. Jason was only 15 years old, a student at Irvine Royal Academy. He and his brother looked similar, and in the darkness, Billy Ferris made a fatal mistake. He held the teenager down and unleashed a savage attack, slashing him 3 times across the face and stabbing him around 15 times. To cover his tracks, the evil man then set Jason's body on fire, hoping the brutal murder would be disguised as a tragic house fire. As the two men fled the scene, their car drove over a small object on the ground, an Oasis CD that had been a Christmas present for Jason. Firefighters were called to the scene and discovered the 15-year-old's charred remains in his bed. At first, it appeared to be a horrific accident, but a post-mortem examination soon revealed the terrible truth. Jason Hutchison had died from multiple stab wounds before the fire was ever started. The investigation into his murder began, and the cover-up plan quickly unraveled. A council worker, cleaning up near the Hutchison home, found a bag of items dumped in some bushes. Inside were the electronics stolen from the house and Jason's Oasis CD. When investigators examined the CD, they found a clear tire tread print pressed into its surface. The print was a perfect match for the tires on Billy Ferris's Honda. The evidence began to mount. A neighbor's CCTV camera had recorded the sound of a car leaving the area that night, and the distinctive sound of its exhaust was matched to Ferris's vehicle. Forensics teams found traces of Jason's blood inside the car. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Billy Ferris denied the murder when he stood trial at the High Court in Edinburgh in December of 2003. A jury listened to the horrific details of the case, including the account that when Ferris realized he had killed the wrong brother, he had laughed and sneered. Better luck next time. They saw through his lies and found him guilty of the brutal killing of Jason Hutchison. During sentencing, the judge, Lady Smith, looked directly at the remorseless killer. She told him, "I have taken into account the brutal nature of the killing, which displayed a callous disregard for human life, the vulnerability of your sleeping victim, who had no quarrel with you, and your previous convictions." As he was led away to begin his second life sentence, with a minimum term of 22 years, Billy Ferris sneered at the grieving Hutchison family who were watching from the gallery. They had called him an animal for what he had done. Billy Ferris would spend the rest of his days in prison, and he eventually died in custody at HMP Low Moss at the age of 75. A double murderer whose life was defined by senseless, brutal violence.
To understand why tragedy like this happens, criminologists often look beyond the crime itself. They categorize killings to better understand the patterns behind them. One important category identified in research by Brookman on homicides in England and Wales is a revenge killing. This is more than just a simple motive. It is a specific type of homicide common in violence between men. The research looks at the entire chain of events and the social context that leads to the final violent act. These killings are almost always triggered by a perceived grievance, a deep-seated feeling that a wrong must be made right through violence, not through the law. This mindset often exists in social worlds where notions of honor and retribution are settled outside of the justice system. The case of Billy Ferris is a chilling real-world example of this concept. His attack on the Hutchison home was a textbook revenge killing. His goal was clearly summed up in his own word: payback. His entire life, from his criminal father to his work as a gangland enforcer, placed him firmly in that social context where extreme violence was an accepted response. The heartbreaking tragedy here is where the theory meets a fatal mistake, a legal concept known as error in persona. The powerful desire for revenge was targeted and specific, but the person who paid the ultimate price was not the target. It was his innocent 15-year-old brother, Jason Hutchison, a boy who became the victim of a deadly and misplaced quest for vengeance. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on another episode.